Also, thank you for having me here today. I think that this is really a great opportunity to be, presenting this to all this audience. I think that it's also a very, beautiful day out there. Maybe I think that for the other people in online, they cannot see it, but it's everything is white here. It's fantastic with the snow. So let's proceed with what I want to share with you today. Okay, we are gonna see a few things during this presentation. I'm gonna talk first about Roche Diagnostics, a little bit about that, and also about global operations, where we are, this is where I'm doing, let's say, risk management inside global operations. We will also briefly talk about, what is the case for supply risk management, and then we will move into what we are doing, what is our journey in supply chain risk management, and finally, what is the shield that we are building. I think that this is just a compendium of several things, and I hope this is going to be of your interest. And while I was preparing the presentation, I said, hey, would they maybe be up to kind of a small exercise at the beginning that is going to give you something of value, immediately, right, as we start this presentation. And I think that is, even if it's not immediately evident, I think it's also related to risk management as well. So I said, hey, I think that they are going to be probably up to that. I don't know, I see a few, I don't know, maybe Susan, would you say no to something of value right now? That can be, a small exercise? Yeah? Okay, anybody will say no to that? No? That's good. So we're gonna do a small breathing exercise, okay? So it's gonna be super short, and it's gonna be, again, I will explain you later, it's something that is also related to, I think that you can use it for risk management. Okay, I'm gonna walk you through, we are gonna do 4 cycles, and we're gonna breathe in for the count of 4. We are going to hold our breath for the count of 6, and we are going to exhale for the count of 8, okay? So this is what we're going to do. I think that's 4, 7, 8, okay? So I think that it is second, okay? And we are going to do that 4 rounds, okay? Is clear for everyone? Are you up to that? Yes? Okay, and then I will explain it a bit later. Okay, so ready? So you can just exhale, and then in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Last one. In, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Fantastic. Yeah, you did great. I think that everybody did it. Fantastic. I don't know how you feel now. This is the relaxing breath. Okay, maybe you know it. Okay, it's really helping, to calm down your nervous system. If you do that twice a day, you are gonna feel the benefits. Maybe sooner, maybe later, okay? But I promise you that you will be. And I think that this is helping in risk management because we need a lot of front side. And I think that we are in the middle of many difficult situations where we really need not to be hijacked by the pineal gland, okay? So we really need to be here, very present. And I think that this is something that you can always use, okay? And I think that, again, this is something of value. Now we can go with the rest of the presentation. Good. Let's move into Roche Diagnostics and Global Operations. Roche moved into the diagnostics market in 1968. So that means that we have been in this market for more than 50 years, and we have been driving innovations and helping patients, since then. If we go to figures on 2024, we have delivered more than 30 billion tests. And we have, I think that means that we have make a revenue of more than 14 billion. We are delivering to many different countries, more than 150 countries, and we do that with a workforce of more than 40,000 people that are located in more than 100 countries. Okay, so just to give a sense of what is our organization and what are the challenges that we are dealing with. In terms of our solutions, we have solutions for laboratories, for clinicians, and also for healthcare systems. Okay, we are leaders in vitro diagnostics, and if you don't know exactly what does it mean, is we do test based on blood, on proteins, on tissue from the patient, RNA, and DNA, etc. So we need, samples, and based on those samples, this is where we are doing our diagnostics. Our portfolio is quite large. I think that we have really solutions in autoimmune, cardiology, metabolic diseases, etc. So there is a lot of different solutions, and products and services. We go into disease management, again, analyzers, many different, a very big portfolio of solutions. Moving into what is our network, in manufacturing network, also, again, bringing you a bit the dimension we are working with here. We have 14 manufacturing locations or manufacturing sites in 4 different continents. And we also have a very robust and extensive, network of partners as well. We also have those sites close to our research facilities to make sure that we have, we do the launches, and we are really close to make sure that we can really have innovative solutions, into the market in the shortest possible time. Okay. And finally, this is about, what is our distribution network. So we have 3 distribution hubs, as you can see, here in the US, in Europe, and also in Shanghai. This is the last one that we have opened. We are delivering to 600,000 customers, more than 11,000 products, and this represents 440,000 tons of material. Okay, so I think that this is giving some dimension of what is Roche Diagnostics and Global Operations. Okay, where we are doing all these risk management activities. Good. Now I want to move into. I think that is okay. With some. Okay. I have a few slides on what is the case for supply risk management. I think that I want to make sure that we go out of this presentation and then we understand, okay, there is a real value behind risk management. Okay, so what we are doing matters, and that matters because we are adding a certain value, right? And I think that might be super evident for some of you, but I have not seen that we are super clear, in at least in risk management in this area. I think that this is maybe a topic where probably as a function we need to evolve a bit and make sure that this is absolutely clear, what is the value that we are delivering. I think that if we talk about supply disruption cost, I think that what I'm presenting here is not a surprise. So we have different buckets when we have a disruption. The first one is, what is the financial cost that we are getting, with this disruption? It's going to be we're gonna need to go for alternative suppliers. We're gonna need to expedite, shipments. We're gonna need to maybe pay penalties because we are not on time, etc. So these are a few of the things that we need to, we are gonna be responsible for immediately, from the financial perspective. From the operational point of view, we're gonna have other elements like, for sure, we need to, maybe we're going to have, our lines are going to stop. This has a cost. Probably we need to reshuffle. We need to do certain other things. If we can't, right, everything is going to have a cost behind. And for sure, the one that is sometimes not so easy to assess is the reputational and market cost, okay? And I think that, I took some elements from a very interesting report from McKinsey, and I think that this is that they have identified that for a disruption of 30 days, the losses could go between 3 and 5% of the EBITDA. Okay, and also based on that article, the probability that happen is around once every 3 years. Okay, so I think that also maybe you can agree there are also many other disruptions. Some of them are going to be, less relevant than that. Others can be, more important than this one. So I decided to take this, for making the case for supply chain risk management. So if we look at what we are aiming for, okay, at least from my perspective, when I look at supply chain risk management, what I'm trying to do is always to prevent what is foreseeable. Okay, if I can really foresee that something is going to happen, I have to make, let's say, everything that is possible, or that, to optimize everything for that is not going to happen. Okay, but also some things are going to be unavoidable, and in that case, what I want to do is that I want to minimize the damage that we are going to suffer. Okay, and mainly is what is the financial damage that we're going to get, due to this event. Okay, at the end, I want to protect the P&L of the company, and also I want to protect my patients so that they get, what they need. So let's go now into this process so that we can calculate, what is the value of resilience. Okay, so how can we understand, what is the return on risk investment that we have, right? As a company, we are putting certain resources and we are preventing certain things from happening. Okay, and this is where we can really evaluate what is the return on investment on risk management. So the first thing is to understand, okay, what is the loss impact? Okay, and if we take the article that I mentioned before, if we consider, an event that is going to affect us during 30 days, so there's going to be a 30-day disruption, so it's going to be 3 to 5% of the EBITDA. In this case, let's take, 4% that is just in the middle. The second thing that we need to look at is what is the probability of that event. As I mentioned before, this is 1 every 3 years, so it's a 33% if we talk about, one specific year. Then the next element is going to be, okay, what is the effectiveness that my mitigations or my actions are going to have, on that event? And in this case, I took, a 75%. That again, I'm going to reduce the possibility, or I'm going to reduce the impact if that happened in 75%. Okay, so this is the effectiveness on my measures as risk mitigations. And at the end, we calculate an expected loss avoidance. Okay, this loss avoidance is going to be, the loss impact that we have calculated, multiplied by all these elements that we have here. At the end, all these percentages is 24.75. And if you multiply that for your expected loss or loss impact, then you get, at the end, your expected loss avoidance. And to calculate your return on risk investment, you take this number and then you divide it by the budget that you have, for risk management, then you get a number, okay? And that is going to tell you, how efficient you are, okay? So I don't know if you are, anyone here is doing that, okay? I think that also we can discuss later on during the roundtable, but it's an element that from my perspective, we should go more and more into making sure that we are capable of translating what we are doing on what we are preventing. I think that one of the issues on risk management is, if nothing happened, then it's like, what is your value, right? And I think that this is where we are really demonstrating that we have the highest value, is really are able to prevent that something is happening, okay? So I don't know, what is this is a question for everyone here, or at least a reflection, what is the return on risk investment that you have in your company? Do you know it? If this is not the method, or the methodology that you are using something else, but at the end, I think that is bringing you, okay, we are putting certain, we are investing, and this is what we are getting, out of this investment in risk management. Okay, again, very important from my side, and this is an exercise that, I have done, and I'm really putting a lot of emphasis now in making sure that this is also visible. Okay. I think that also it depends on how you assess that, how you evaluate it. But many people is, pointing in the direction that between 3-5, a ratio of 3-5 is already a good one. Okay, we should be looking into that. I think that if you are, into the 10, 25 to 1, etc., that means that you are very efficient, right? So I think that this is all that, let's say the company is not putting maybe, the efforts required into the investment or into the risk management. It depends, also what is the maturity of your programs as well. But happy to discuss about that later in the roundtables. Okay. Good. Now I'm gonna show you, what has been our journey in risk management, especially in the last 3 years. I think that is kind of after COVID, right? Many things have changed. We have, one of the programs that we have in Roche Diagnostics that has been a very important program for us is the security of supply program, okay? And we have kind of blended that with risk management because it really helped us to kind of doing a cross-functional exercise, making sure that we involve other functions, we make sure that we involve other key stakeholders, and that we move the needle into the risk management into the proactive space, okay? So that we really increase our return on investment, okay? Some of the key figures here is the column that you see on the left side is, where we were 3 years back, okay? And then the blue column is where we are now. And let's look at the material. In our case, we are looking at, what is the risk that is coming from the materials that we are buying, okay? And then what is the risk that is coming also from the suppliers? I think that we have that separate yet. I think that in our journey, we're gonna later integrate all these, but we wanted to make sure that we have a clear visibility on materials and suppliers, okay, in a separate way, okay? 3 years ago, it was, very costly to assess the materials in terms of time and in terms of effort for the organization. So it took us 2 years to assess 18,000 materials, okay? It's a very significant number, 18,000 materials, but it took us 2 years and a very, very significant effort. You can see here more than 100 days, work days per annually, a lot of effort in the organization, and also that requires a lot of time, okay? And nowadays we develop a system that is helping us to assess 20,000 cases, so it's almost the same amount of materials, but we are doing that in a highly automated way. We are bringing elements from different sources, etc., and this is working, still fine-tuning the process, but this is really working very nicely so far, and is really 90% reduction in terms of work days. Okay, so I think that if we really want to assess, I think that we need to make it easy. We need to make it, as effortless as possible, for the organization. Otherwise, we are not going to be able to sustain the effort. So this is a clear example. The next example is supplier risk. This is where we really started the journey. We have a system that that has completely changed the way we assess suppliers. Before, 200 suppliers a year, that was the maximum. We were using a very manual process, involving our category managers, etc. Everybody, high level of involvement. First a questionnaire to our category managers, second a questionnaire to suppliers. I mean, there was a huge, let's say, process behind, okay? And we were finally able to just get 200 suppliers per year, okay? Really assess. And then now we have, our direct material suppliers, more than 2,400 suppliers that we are monitoring. We monitor those suppliers constantly. So we are bringing, many different dimensions into, one internal solution. And this is updated kind of regularly every day, okay? And we are capable of addressing and pointing in the direction of, hey, we see the risk here, we see the risk there, and we can really focus our teams on what matters the most, okay? And make sure that we look at that. I think that this is the most important thing, Are we looking at what matters right now, okay? So it's not something that happens, 6 months ago or 1 year ago. Are we looking at what really represents a risk today? Okay. The next topic is the financial risk, and I think that I want to highlight that because from my perspective, this is where we really see the disruptions. Okay, I mean, there are many things going on, right? We have wars, we have geopolitical tensions, etc. I think that there are many things affecting us, but I will say that from what we see, is financial risk is a clear element. I think that with all this number of suppliers, at the end every year you have 1 or 2 suppliers, which are going into a difficult situation or into bankruptcy, and that can really represent a big issue because then, changing suppliers, trying to get, the materials can be really, really challenging. And if that happens, then again, you get a disruption. So we are making a big effort on making sure that we gain this financial visibility. And, 3 years back, we didn't have almost in private companies. Maybe you recognize that it's very difficult to get good information, right? Good financial analysis about private companies. I don't know if some of you, it's a different situation, but for us, what you can get out there is directional information, which is kind of something that can help you to maybe pinpoint certain things, but at the end you get many surprises, okay, with that information. But now, we have in our special program more than 100 private companies, which are very important. For sure, you need to make sure that you address the right ones, where we have full financial visibility with them, okay? And I see that as a major change, right? Because with those companies, if they are doing great, that is fantastic. If they are not doing great, then you can engage into a conversation so that you discuss about then how to get to a place where they are not at risk, you are not at risk. And I think that this is the point where, or let's say the intention behind this program, okay? It's not something that we are doing because then we have more leverage to negotiate something, etc. It's really something that we are doing to see, do we need to have a conversation about, where you are going in terms of, what is the financial health of your company. Another point is our tier 2 or tier 3 visibility, right? The sub-tier, the sub-suppliers. And I think that, I see Susan nodding. I think that this is very relevant. I think that many of probably of our companies are trying to get there because there is an important value. I think, there are many different, let's say, analysis there, but I think at the end, 80 or, high percentage of disruptions are starting, upstream, okay? Not in your tier 1s, but in your tier 2s or your tier 3s, okay? And we had no visibility at all. Now we have visibility on more than 1,500 suppliers, sub-tiers, okay? And again, it's a major change based on also, and we are kind of focused on increasing this visibility, every day, every year. And at the end is the monitoring that comes with everything that you saw before. We really have no active monitoring before. Now we have active monitoring, and that means that we know what happens to our suppliers, or let's say most of the things that are happening out there 24/7 for our suppliers, but also, the sub-tiers that we are identifying, we do the same thing. So we bring all them kind of, in this monitoring process so that we can act if something happens, right? So I think this being fast in this case is going to be one of the key elements that is going to help us, to minimize impact. Good. I think that I briefly mentioned, in my previous slide, what we are doing. I want to bring your attention into what is at the top here, structural and dynamic visibility. Maybe we have taken these terms, I think that from Accenture, if I'm correct. I think that I really like, how they describe that. I think that they call it smart visibility, right? And I think that we need to bring a good level of structural visibility and dynamic visibility to make sure that we cover, the spectrum of things that can happen to us. And structural visibility, we're covering that with highly automated processes and systems, right? For suppliers, for materials, make sure that we understand where are the weaknesses, okay? That we can really prioritize so that we can act proactively, okay, on those. This is what is the structural, visibility giving us. And dynamic is, do we know what is happening, what is going on for our suppliers, right now, okay? Is there something where we should act because, or something is coming our way? So I think that, this is the dynamic visibility. And all that is going to, let's say, is using this digital twin where we have all these elements, in a place where we can really work with them, okay? So that we can really extract value. And what is below these special initiatives that you see here in light blue, like financial visibility, supply chain visibility, and active monitoring and event management, is what is feeding, all these elements, okay? So it's constantly, increasing the level of structural visibility and dynamic visibility that we have. And I'm going to go a bit more into the details of these special initiatives that we have internally. Financial visibility, I mentioned, for us is very important. Again, that represents a clear risk that cannot be blended or mixed with other things. I think that, from my perspective, we need to look at financials in a very, clear way, isolated way. And we need to do that for private companies. We are working with, for sure, public companies, big companies, etc. This is relatively easy to get financial information. But we work with many, many different companies. Many of them are private companies, okay? And then we have this, kind of black box, where if you don't know how the supplier is doing, it's going to be very difficult, right, to prevent anything. So we have a special program, with one service supplier, and this program is really helping us to bring, private companies that in principle are very reluctant to share the financials, right, because this is kind of something that is at their core. They don't want to they feel that they are, that this is not the right thing, to give these numbers, because then you can use them in different ways. We need to create trust. We need to have something behind that is, helping everyone. And I think that you need to make sure that they understand what is the purpose of what you are doing. Okay, so very important. We have really put a lot of emphasis, and then we are really scaling it up. Okay, so I think that this year we are moving, from this 100 to, even to 250. We really want to make sure that we cover what is important. We are not going to be able to cover everything, right? But I think that we need to make sure that we cover what matters the most, okay? Then supply chain visibility. So in this case, for supply chain visibility, we are also partnering with another service provider. And this is, I can tell you, I don't know what is your experience, right? But in this case, we are going for something that is a process that gives me validated data, right? So, maybe that there are different methodologies out there. There is a lot of discussions about AI mapping or autonomous mapping, etc. Can I get already my cloud of, potential suppliers out there, or, tier 2s, tier 3s? We have decided to go for a more manual process where we approach our suppliers directly to get them in, right? To get their information, and then to get the suppliers. And I'm not gonna lie, that requires effort, okay? And that requires also a strong partner that is gonna also collaborate in the process, bring suppliers into this, create confidence and trust. is a lot of effort, but I think that is really worthwhile. Again, if we are creating this network, I think that we are also creating probably the best insurance that we can, for our operations to continue. Again, maybe we don't see the value today, but if something happens, it's going to be much more easier to react, if we see it as a tier 2, tier 3, that if we see it then when it's at the tier 1 level. Very good. And then for sure, active monitoring and event management. And then let's move into, where from my point of view lies the resilience, okay? And I think that resilience lies beyond tools. And I wanted to bring you, one concept here that is, I don't know, from my perspective, we need to make sure that we have very strong partners supporting our journey in risk management. I think that, as I see, for example, we have let's say a small or a very small group of people, in my case, working on these topics, and we need very strong partners outside that are helping us to, to bring all this together. So for me, I don't see that we are kind of buying tools. We are really kind of bringing Sherpas together with us, okay? They need to help us, okay? They need to help us to create this, and what are we trying to create? Are the conditions to have an active and engaged supply base, okay? And they should be willing to share and collaborate with us. And for me, there are two elements, and I think that probably this is, I don't know, if you get something from this presentation, we're trying to create a very tight collaboration with our service suppliers, and this is the book that you see here, is Getting to We. This is a fantastic approach, if you can use it. It's really bringing, highly collaborative agreements, and then you need to make sure that you are relatable to the pain of your suppliers and also relevant to their goals if you want to bring them with you, okay? So very important. And I also put here a book that is fantastic for everyone if you want to read it. And at the end, we get to the shield, okay? And the shield is putting all these in one place. So make sure that you get this structural visibility. This dynamic visibility, from my perspective, is is essential that you get partners together with you. So these service providers, and at the end, you create the human connection. The tool is not gonna create resilience by itself. And thank you very much.